It may seem surprising to see men of the cloth brewing beer and making cheese, but these activities are in perfect harmony with the rules of monastic life in Trappist abbeys. In fact, Trappist monks dedicate their lives to serving God and split their time between prayer, study, and work. Among other things, they may produce their own beer and cheese because, as Trappist tradition dictates, the monks must live from their own work. Naturally, this tradition is perpetuated at Scourmont Abbey in Chimay. In the summer of 1850, a group of monks from St. Sixtus Abbey in West Vleteren established themselves on the high Scourmont Plateau next to the town of Chimay, on land given to them by the Prince of Chimay. They worked hard to transform the poor soil into fertile agricultural land. In 1862, brewing started and the first Chimay beer was produced. It was logically named La Première, the first, and still exists today under the better-known name Chimay Rouge. With its brewery, dairy, hostel and other activities, Chimay Abbey has become a large employer in the region. Only 7 beers in the world, 6 of them Belgian and 1 of them Dutch, are able to call themselves Trappist beers. This label means that they're brewed inside a Trappist monastery under the supervision of the monks, and that a substantial slice of the profit is redistributed to help those in need. The main ingredient in beer is barley, which is partially germinated, dried and roasted. It's then known as malt. The color of the malt becomes darker as the barley is roasted for longer. The malt is ground and then mixed with pure abbey water in a vat known as a mash tun. This mixture is brought to various different temperatures at set intervals to enable enzymes to transform the starch into fermentable sugar. It then has to be filtered to separate the spent grains, the husk and residue, from the liquid. At this stage, the liquid is not yet called beer, but wort. The spent grain is used as cattle feed by neighboring farmers. The wort is then boiled, and it's at this point that the hops are added. They are in fact added in 2 batches, the first at the beginning of the boiling process to add bitterness and the second at the end to bring out their subtle aromas. The wort is clarified in a centrifuge to get rid of solid residue, including the hops. It's then cooled before being put in the fermentation vats. Fermentation begins after yeast has been added to the wort. In 1948, Father Theodore developed the yeast that gives Chimay beers their particular flavor. Fermentation takes around 1 week in the abbey's vats, depending on the beer being brewed. During this stage, the yeast transforms the fermentable sugar into alcohol and carbon dioxide. It's at this point that we can start to think of the liquid as beer. It's then clarified, meaning that the excess yeast is separated by centrifuge. It can then start the maturation process in the storage tanks. Once fermentation is complete, the precious brew can definitely be called beer. After fermentation, it matures for 2 weeks in a storage vat at low temperature. It's then taken away on a tanker truck to the bottling plant at Belgium. However, just before leaving, sugar and fresh yeast are added to trigger a second fermentation that will take place in the bottle. Chimay can therefore be considered to be an authentic Trappist beer that has been created by master brewers at the Abbey for 150 years. With the exception of Chimay bottles sent for export, all empty bottles are processed by the brewery's logistics department, which naturally has its own trucks. They collect used bottles when they make deliveries and therefore never run empty. Once they arrive at Chimay, all empty bottles are carefully washed and filled up again. The first stage involves removing the crates from the pallets. This automated operation sorts each crate and each bottle so that they can slot back into the production line. However, human error does creep in, and other empty bottles therefore often find their way into Chimay crates. Only the original bottles, marked with the Scourmont Abbey's logo, are used for Chimay Trappist beers. The others are sent back to the correct brewery. Have you ever tried to wash a beer bottle? At Chimay, almost 40,000 bottles an hour are washed and refilled. A powerful washer cleans and disinfects the empty bottles. New bottles pass through a rinser in order to save water and energy. In the last stage before filling, each bottle is scanned to detect the slightest little flaw and automatically get rid of any defective bottles. So there you have it, the bottles are now ready to go into the bottler to receive their beer. The big moment has finally arrived. It's time for Chimay Trappist beer to be bottled. Filling operates around a continuous circuit. The beer flows into the bottle, which is immediately stoppered, and it remains safely in there until it's tasted. This cutting-edge equipment enables Chimay Brewery to preserve the many qualities of its beers. Labeling comes next and ensures that each bottle, as well as its contents and destination, is identified. The bottles now just have to be crated to facilitate transport and sales. Crates of Chimay beer are not sent out straight away. There's a final stage known as bottle re-fermentation, which is made possible by the sugar and yeast present in the beer. The crates are stored for a minimum of 21 days in Chimay's cellars at a stable temperature and humidity, which provide optimal conditions for this re-fermentation. Chimay Trappist beer therefore acquires a little more alcohol and its special sparkle. As soon as this stage is complete, the beer is finally ready to be tasted. A large proportion of Chimay Trappist beer is reserved for export, meaning that you can savor your Chimay in Paris and Rome, and as far afield as New York, Tokyo and Buenos Aires. Several countries receive crates, but for long-distance export, Chimay is sent in boxes. Some bottles are therefore repackaged after leaving the cellar. They're then ready to be sent off around the world so that the beer connoisseurs can enjoy them. Father Theodore isolated the yeast cells and developed them selectively in the laboratory as far back as 1948. It took him 2 years to select the yeast that would give Chimay beer its distinctive taste. Chimay still has its laboratory, but the tools have changed beyond all recognition. Thousands of microbiological tests are carried out in order to guarantee Chimay beer's consistent quality and taste. The main tests relate to raw materials such as water, malt and hops, the quality of the beer during the brewing process, fermentation and bottling, as well as how well the head holds. However, the mainstay of the quality control process takes place outside of the laboratory and relies on human expertise. Our specialists taste and assess samples every day before the beer is sold. Mouthfeel, aroma and smoothness are all evaluated by their expert palates. Chimay Red is unquestionably Chimay's flagship beer because it was the first of 3 beers to be brewed in the Abbey in 1862. At the time, it was offered only in corked 75 centilitre bottles. A 33 centilitre version was created in 1948. Chimay Red is copper-coloured with gentle apricot flavours, hints of chocolate and a deliciously refreshing bitterness. It should be savoured at cellar temperature. Chimay Triple is an amber blonde beer. It's the Abbey's newest beer and can be recognised by its white cap. It was created in 1966 by the Reverend Father Theodore. It also comes in a 75 centilitre bottle under the name Saint. It's golden in colour and manages successfully to combine smoothness and tartness. It should be served between 6 and 8 degrees Celsius. Chimay Blue has the strongest personality. It was first brewed as a Christmas beer, but due to its success is now brewed all year long. It comes in a 75 centilitre bottle with the name Grande Réserve. Chimay Blue is a distinctive brown beer with a particularly lovely aroma of fresh yeast, the taste of caramel with a trace of bitterness. It should be savoured after several years in the cellar. If a bar serves Chimay Triple on draft, it's a sacred place. This highly refreshing beer is unique. Just like its bottled version, it's neither filtered nor pasteurized and re-ferments in 20-litre barrels for 3 weeks. It's a perfect aperitif beer and should be served in the Chimay 25 centilitre chalice glass. It will delight even the most discerning of beer drinkers.